There are moments in life when holding on feels safer than letting go, but what if the very thing you are clinging to is the reason your blessings cannot reach you? What if God is whispering to your heart that the door you refuse to close is the one blocking the path He prepared for you? When you begin to understand the spiritual law of release, you realize that letting go is not a moment of weakness, but a profound act of trust. Many people hold tightly to situations, relationships, or outcomes because they fear emptiness. They fear that if they loosen their grip, they will be left with nothing. Yet the truth is that nothing leaves your life unless something greater is on its way. Release is the doorway to divine replacement, but most hearts hesitate at the threshold because they cannot see what waits on the other side. This hesitation builds emotional tension, spiritual resistance, and unnecessary attachment to things that were never meant to carry you into the future. When your hands are full of what is not meant for you, you unintentionally block the blessings that are already aligned with your destiny. The universe cannot place a blessing into clenched fists. God cannot deliver a promise to a heart still entangled with what He never intended for you to carry. To release something that once felt important means you must trust that God has a higher view of your life. He sees the mountain you are about to climb, the opportunities you are about to meet, the people who will play a role in your growth, and the version of yourself you are becoming. Holding on to the wrong things disturbs that process. It stretches you in directions that weaken your foundation instead of strengthening your purpose. Release becomes an act of alignment. It is choosing to let go even when you do not have all the answers, because you believe that what God chooses for you is always better than what you could choose for yourself. Every time you release what was not chosen for you, you create a sacred space for divine replacement. You make room for blessings that match your spiritual frequency rather than your fears. You open the door for relationships that nurture your soul instead of draining your energy. You allow opportunities that move you forward instead of keeping you trapped in cycles. This is not passive surrender. It is active cooperation with the spiritual law that makes your path clear, lighter, and more aligned with the life you are meant to live. People often misunderstand release as loss, because they forget that spiritual growth requires spaciousness. You cannot plant new seeds in soil already crowded with weeds. In the same way, you cannot step into a new season with arms full of past burdens. Release is not about giving up something valuable. It is about recognizing that everything God chooses for you comes with peace, clarity, and expansion. Anything that must be forced, chased, or constantly repaired is not a divine gift. When something leaves your life, it does not mean you were unworthy of it. It means it was unworthy of the version of you that God is shaping. Every departure is making space for something aligned on a higher level. The act of release does not diminish your life. It refines it. It purifies your direction. It strengthens your intuition. It heightens your sensitivity to what belongs and what does not. Once you understand this, you begin moving with grace. You no longer fear endings. You see them as signals that a new chapter is ready to unfold. Letting go also reveals your resilience. You discover that you do not need to cling to anything for your life to remain meaningful. You realize that God does not leave empty spaces barren. Everything removed is preparation for something greater. This awareness builds confidence in the flow of life. You learn to trust that what is meant for you will reach you without force and stay with you without struggle. When you stop wrestling with what was never chosen for you, your energy shifts, your heart becomes lighter, your mind becomes clearer, your path becomes smoother. You begin attracting experiences that reflect your growth rather than your past wounds. Release is not a single act, but a lifestyle. It is a continuous recalibration where you choose alignment over attachment and purpose over comfort. As you grow spiritually, the universe tests your willingness to release outdated versions of yourself. When you pass these tests, you unlock new realms of possibility. As you move into the second keynote, it becomes clear that what is meant for you will never require you to break yourself. Many people spend years trying to maintain relationships, jobs, dreams, or identities that constantly pull them away from their inner peace. They call this loyalty or commitment, but in truth, it is self-abandonment. Anything that is meant for you will not demand your suffering as payment. True divine assignments uplift you. They strengthen your spirit. They nourish your confidence. When you find yourself bending so far that you lose your shape or sacrificing your joy to keep something alive, that is a sign that it was never divinely aligned. What comes from God does not drain you. It supports your growth. It speaks to your highest self, not your fears. It encourages healing, not exhaustion. When something constantly hurts you, confuses you, or forces you to compromise your self-worth, it is not meant to remain in your life. The truth is that many people confuse difficulty with destiny. They believe that if something takes effort or endurance, it must be valuable. But not every struggle is purposeful. Some struggles are warnings. They are signs that you are fighting for something that does not belong to you. When you continuously experience emotional heaviness around something, it is your spirit quietly telling you that you are misaligned. Your peace is the compass of your destiny. Anything that repeatedly disrupts that peace is not meant for you. When something is right, you will feel a sense of flow, even when challenges appear. You will feel supported instead of drained. You will feel guided instead of lost. You will feel inspired instead of diminished. People break themselves trying to sustain what God never assigned to them. They shrink their voice, their dreams, their identity just to fit into a place where they were never meant to belong. They stay in relationships hoping love will fix what is fundamentally mismatched. They stay in environments that suffocate their potential. They hold on to identities shaped by old wounds instead of evolving into who they were meant to become. This self-breaking becomes habitual, and eventually they forget what it feels like to live in alignment. But destiny does not require you to break yourself. It requires you to become yourself. The right people will not demand that you silence your truth. The right opportunities will not make you feel small. The right path will stretch you but never shatter you. Growth may be uncomfortable, but it should never be destructive. When you stop choosing things that tear you apart, you begin attracting things that build you up. You reclaim your energy. You restore your sense of worth. You reconnect with the voice within that knows your purpose better than any external force. You realize that you do not have to chase anything meant for you. What is yours will naturally align. What is meant for you will never compete with your peace. It will cooperate with your purpose. It will meet you with grace. The moment you stop breaking yourself to fit into the wrong places, the right places begin to appear. You step into a version of life that honors your value instead of diminishing it. Release and alignment work together. When you release what God did not choose for you, you free yourself from unnecessary burdens. When you choose what supports your spirit instead of what breaks it, you align with your destiny. These two spiritual laws shape a life that flows instead of fights. They create a path where blessings arrive with ease, where relationships add joy instead of chaos, and where opportunities reflect your true identity. Letting go and refusing to break yourself become acts of self-respect and faith. They signal to the universe that you are ready for the life God designed for you, not the one you tried to force. Delayed blessings are often misunderstood as signs of rejection or abandonment, but in truth, many delays occur because you are holding on to something you were never meant to keep. Blessings flow in a rhythm that matches spiritual readiness, and readiness is impossible when your heart is divided between the future God is calling you toward and the past you refuse to release. When you cling to attachments that have expired, you slow your own progress without realizing it. These attachments may look like relationships that no longer nurture your growth, habits that no longer align with your purpose, mindsets that limit your potential, or comforts that keep you from evolving. Every time you cling to something that drains your energy, you redirect the time and emotional bandwidth that your blessings require. Imagine trying to climb a mountain with your hands full of unnecessary weight. You might still reach the top eventually, but the journey becomes longer, harder, and more exhausting. This is what happens spiritually when you refuse to let go of what no longer belongs in your life. Your destiny remains yours, but the path toward it becomes slower because you are dragging what was meant to be left behind. What many people do not realize is that blessings are sensitive to alignment. They arrive with perfect timing, but that timing also depends on your willingness to cooperate with the process. If your heart is occupied with fear, resentment, guilt, or attachment to the wrong people, there may be no space left for the blessings designed to elevate you. You may pray for new opportunities while still clinging to old ones that are draining you. You may ask for a healthier relationship while holding onto someone who is blocking your emotional capacity to receive real love. You may wait for clarity while surrounding yourself with confusion. God does not withhold blessings because you are unworthy. Blessings are delayed because you are not yet unburdened enough to carry them. Every delay is an invitation to examine what you might be holding onto that contradicts your next chapter. Letting go becomes a spiritual strategy. It removes unnecessary friction, opens channels for clearer guidance, and creates energetic space for new blessings to sail into your life. When you release what God did not choose for you, you speed up divine timing because you step into alignment with what is meant to be delivered to you without struggle. Sometimes you think you are waiting on God, when in reality God is waiting on you. He is waiting for you to detach from what keeps you stuck in cycles that do not serve your evolution. He is waiting for you to trust that letting go will not leave you empty. He is waiting for you to choose peace over attachment, purpose over fear, and faith over familiarity. When you look back at your life, you will notice that the greatest blessings often arrived right after major releases. Breakthroughs followed endings. Opportunities followed closure. New chapters followed the courage to walk away from the old. This is not coincidence. It is the natural rhythm of spiritual alignment. What is meant for you finds you quickly when you stop holding on to what slows you down. Blessings do not thrive in cluttered hearts or confused minds. When you set yourself free, you accelerate the arrival of everything meant to uplift your life. As you move into the fourth keynote, you begin to understand that letting go is not loss. It is alignment. Many people fear letting go because they view it through the lens of scarcity. They believe that removing something from their lives leaves a void that may never be filled. This fear creates emotional attachment to things that should have departed long ago. But when you shift your perspective, you realize that letting go is not about losing something valuable. It is about releasing something that no longer supports your journey, so that something more aligned can take its place. Letting go is not an act of deprivation. It is an act of preparation. It makes space for the version of you that is waiting to emerge. You cannot grow without shedding parts of your life that limit your ascent. Trees shed leaves not because the leaves lack value, but because they are no longer needed for the next season. In the same way, you shed attachments that belong to a chapter you have already outgrown. The loss is only an illusion. What truly happens is transformation. You evolve into a version of yourself that is lighter, clearer, and more capable of receiving the blessings ahead. Alignment is a state where your thoughts, actions, relationships, and environment support your purpose instead of contradicting it. When you hold on to what God did not choose for you, you create misalignment. Your internal compass becomes confused. Your intuition becomes harder to hear. Your energy becomes scattered. You may find yourself revisiting old patterns, repeating old mistakes, or feeling stuck. This stagnation is not a sign that you have failed. It is simply a sign that something in your life no longer fits and must be released for you to return to alignment. When you let go, everything begins to rearrange itself naturally. Your mind becomes clearer. Your decisions become easier. Your emotions settle. Your vision becomes sharper. Suddenly, paths that once felt blocked start opening with ease. This is because alignment removes resistance. It places you in the flow of your destiny instead of pushing against it. Letting go is also a form of honoring your growth. You are no longer the person you were when you first accepted the things you now need to release. You have gained wisdom, strength, and clarity. What once fit your life may no longer match your spirit. Holding on to something that contradicts your growth weakens your inner power. Releasing it reclaims that power. It allows you to step fully into who you are becoming. You begin to trust yourself more deeply. You begin to recognize the difference between attachment and alignment. Attachment is rooted in fear. It says you must hold on to something because you may not find bear. Alignment is rooted in faith. It says you deserve what enhances your life, not what burdens it. When you choose alignment over attachment, you access levels of peace and clarity that transform your entire journey. Letting go is also an act of spiritual obedience. It shows that you trust the plan even when you do not understand the process. You trust that removing the wrong things opens the door for the right things. You trust that God never asks you to release something without preparing something more suitable. You trust that alignment brings protection, clarity, and purpose. Once you experience the freedom of letting go, you begin to see life differently. You stop forcing connections that do not feel right. You stop begging for opportunities that are not aligned. You stop compromising your worth for the sake of familiarity. You begin choosing what nourishes your spirit instead of what feeds your fears. This shift elevates every area of your life. You attract healthier relationships because you no longer tolerate those that diminish your value. You attract better opportunities because your energy is no longer wasted on the wrong ones. You attract clarity because your mind is no longer cluttered with confusion. Ultimately, letting go is a return to your true path. It is a declaration that you are willing to evolve. It is a commitment to honoring your destiny. It is an expression of faith that what is meant for you will find you, stay with you, uplift you, and expand you. When you embrace letting go as alignment instead of loss, you no longer fear transitions. You welcome them. You trust them. You understand that every release moves you closer to the life designed for you. Sometimes in life, the most painful moments are not the ones where we fail, but the ones where we feel rejected. Something you wanted slips away. Someone you trusted walks out. An opportunity you prayed for closes abruptly. The first reaction is usually confusion or self-blame. You start wondering what you did wrong or why things could not work the way you imagined. Yet, one of the deepest spiritual truths is that protection often comes disguised as rejection. What looks like loss is sometimes God stepping in and removing what would have harmed your purpose, your peace, or your path. It is difficult to accept this when emotions are raw, but with time you realize that not every departure is a setback. Some departures are doorways. They redirect your steps away from situations that cannot hold the weight of who you are becoming. Rejection becomes a form of divine intervention, a gentle but firm redirection that saves you from future heartbreak, wasted years, or spiritual misalignment. People often misunderstand this because they look at life through the lens of immediate emotion instead of long-term wisdom. When something ends, the mind reacts with panic because it is wired to hold on to familiarity. But the spirit knows when something is not aligned, even if your heart is still attached. It knows when you are connected to someone who cannot support your growth. It knows when you are giving time and energy to an environment that limits your evolution. When God removes such things, it may hurt, but it is a higher form of protection. You are being pulled away from a path that would eventually damage you. You are being spared from cycles that would have drained your spirit. The disappointment you feel now is temporary, but the protection behind it is permanent. When you begin to see rejection through this lens, you no longer take it personally. You begin to understand that a closed door is not a reflection of your inadequacy. It is a reflection of divine clarity. The universe removes what is not aligned so that what belongs to you can move closer without resistance. This is why you must not chase what God has removed. When something falls away, let it fall. When someone leaves, let them leave. When a plan collapses, trust that another one is unfolding beneath the surface. Many people delay their progress by trying to resurrect dead connections or force outcomes that were never meant to materialize. They pour their energy into convincing someone to stay, proving their worth, or fighting for a situation that is no longer aligned with their purpose. This only deepens their pain and extends the season of confusion. When something is not meant for you, no amount of effort can make it sustainable. You cannot fight God for what He did not choose for you. You cannot force a blessing that was never assigned to your path. The moment you stop resisting the rejection, you begin to see its purpose. You start realizing that you are being guided somewhere safer, wiser, and more fulfilling. What once felt like loss becomes liberation. You learn to appreciate the unseen protection behind every unanswered prayer and every unexpected ending. This shifts the way you view your journey. You stop associating rejection with failure. Instead, you begin to see it as guidance. You start recognizing the signs that something does not belong in your life. You become more aware of the moments when your peace is disturbed, when your intuition grows heavy, or when you feel a spiritual nudge telling you to let go. These signals are often ignored in the beginning because they challenge your attachments. But when rejection arrives, it confirms what your spirit already sensed. It becomes a message that something greater is waiting once you let go of what is misaligned. The beauty of this realization is that it gives you the courage to trust endings. You no longer fear change. You no longer cling to situations that deplete your emotional and spiritual reserves. Instead, you begin to walk with confidence, knowing that everything that leaves your life is either a lesson or a blessing in disguise. This brings you into the sixth keynote, which teaches one of the most important spiritual disciplines: learning to trust the times when God says no. Many people are comfortable trusting divine promises, divine blessing, and divine favor. but they struggle deeply with divine boundaries. They do not recognize that a no is just as intentional as a yes. A no protects your destiny. A no redirects your steps. A no prevents you from entering situations that your heart wants but your purpose cannot survive. Trusting God means trusting His judgment, even when it conflicts with your desires. It requires the humility to accept that the full picture is not visible to you. You see the moment. He sees the future. You see the emotion. He sees the outcome. You see the temporary comfort. He sees the long-term impact on your purpose, relationships, and spiritual growth. The no often arrives silently. It may come through a door that will not open no matter how hard you try. It may come through a relationship that falls apart despite your efforts to fix it. It may appear in the form of a plan that collapses right when you believed it was about to flourish. These moments feel unfair because you have invested your emotions, time, and expectation. But spiritual maturity teaches you to pause and reflect before fighting the no. When something refuses to work, it may not be because you are unworthy or unprepared. It may be because the outcome you want would lead you into unnecessary pain. God does not deny you to harm you. He denies you to protect you. He denies you to guide you towards something healthier, more meaningful, and more aligned with your calling. The no is a shield, not a punishment. It is a safeguard for your destiny. The clarity of this truth becomes stronger with experience. You begin to look back on certain no's and realize that they were acts of mercy. They prevented you from stepping into situations you were not meant to endure. Trusting the no also requires emotional discipline. It demands that you let go of the belief that everything you want is good for you. Desires are often shaped by your past, your wounds, or your fears. Purpose is shaped by your future. The two do not always align. Your heart may cling to something because it is familiar, while your destiny pushes you towards something unfamiliar but transformative. When you trust the no, you surrender the need to force your own way. You choose alignment over attachment. You acknowledge that divine timing, divine connections, and divine opportunities cannot be rushed or manipulated. You learn to wait with faith instead of anxiety. You learn to accept redirection without resentment. This builds a foundation of spiritual confidence that changes the way you move through life. You stop chasing things that drain your spirit. You stop begging for what is not meant for you. You stop interpreting every closed door as a sign of inadequacy. Instead, you begin to walk with assurance, knowing that what is meant for you will always arrive without forcing, breaking, or losing yourself in the process. This mindset brings peace, clarity, and emotional balance. You begin to trust that if something is for you, it will come naturally. It will align without constant struggle. It will stay without conditions. It will flourish without requiring you to sacrifice your worth or silence your intuition. When you trust the no, you also become available for better yeses. You create space for opportunities that add value to your life instead of complication. You open the door for relationships that honor your growth instead of restricting it. You step into environments where your presence is appreciated, not tolerated. The no becomes the turning point that leads you from what is comfortable to what is destined. It becomes the boundary that protects your heart and the compass that guides your steps. As you grow spiritually, you begin to see the beauty in divine boundaries. You recognize that every no carries a hidden yes. Every rejection carries hidden protection. Every ending carries hidden redirection. You start trusting not only the blessings but also the barriers. This trust brings emotional freedom. It allows you to release the pressure of trying to control outcomes. It allows you to rest in the understanding that your life is unfolding exactly as it should. You begin to embrace the wisdom that not everything you lose is a loss, and not everything you want is meant to stay. When you trust the no, you step into a life where peace leads your decisions and faith guides your direction. You begin living with the confidence that you are always being guided, always being protected, and always being aligned with the path designed for you.